On a cold February night, a young woman crashes her car on a quiet rural road in New Hampshire. When responding officers arrive minutes later, she is gone. No footprints. No sign of struggle. No trace. It's one of the most baffling disappearances in recent American history, a case that has kept investigators and the public searching for answers for years. This is the disappearance of Maura Murray. Maura Murray was born on May 4, 1982. She grew up in Massachusetts as one of 5 children in a close-knit family. Bright and athletic, she was described by friends and family as determined and independent. After graduating high school, Maura enrolled at the United States Military Academy at West Point, but later transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where she studied nursing. She had ambitions in the medical field and had shown promise in both academics and athletics. By early 2004, at just 21 years old, Maura seemed to be on a path toward a meaningful career. Yet in the weeks before her disappearance, those who knew her noticed behavior that was out of character, small choices, and strange explanations that, in hindsight, would form a troubling pattern. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Maura made a series of decisions that raised questions. She had been involved in an incident in which a vehicle she was using was damaged. The resulting financial and personal stress appeared to weigh on her. On February 9, 2004, Maura sent an email to her professors indicating she would be out of class for several days because of an emergency. She wrote that she needed time away and would not attend class, even for a short period. There was no later confirmation of an emergency in her family or among close relatives. That same day, Maura withdrew cash from an ATM, visited a store near the university where she purchased a small number of personal items, and packed a few things into her car: clothing, some textbooks, and toiletries. These actions suggested she may have been preparing for a trip, yet the purpose of such a trip remained unclear. Then she drove north, toward the rural border region between Massachusetts and New Hampshire. It was a route she had taken before for short trips. What began as a simple drive would turn into a mystery that has confounded searchers for years. On the evening of February 9th, shortly after dusk, Maura lost control of her vehicle on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. Her car struck a snowbank and became stuck. A passing driver noticed the crash and stopped to offer assistance. According to their account, Maura politely declined help, saying she had already called for roadside assistance. She appeared calm and said she had the situation under control. When local police arrived a short time later, they found the vehicle locked and unattended. Inside the car were Maura's personal belongings, clothing, identification, and the items she had purchased earlier. There was no sign of a forced exit, and the vehicle did not show indications of a prolonged struggle. The strange detail that puzzled many investigators was this: Maura was simply not there. Local authorities launched an immediate search. Officers combed the roadside, checked nearby fields and woods, and used search dogs to track any scent trail. Snow covered the area, making the absence of footprints even more notable. No distinct tracks led away from the vehicle into the surrounding woods. Over the following days, the search expanded. Volunteers, family members, cadaver dogs, and even airborne searches joined the effort. Investigators interviewed the driver who had stopped earlier and other motorists who had been in the area that evening. Several local residents recalled seeing a vehicle stopped on the shoulder that night, and some reported seeing lights or unfamiliar people nearby in the hours before and after the crash. Despite the intensive efforts, no confirmed trace of Maura was found. Her disappearance quickly attracted national attention, both because of the mystery and the unanswered questions about her actions before the crash.
Over the years, several plausible theories have circulated among investigators, family, and independent researchers. Each offers possible explanations, but none fully account for all the facts. Some believe Maura intended to leave of her own accord. The withdrawn cash, packed items, and email to professors created an appearance of someone preparing to be away for a short period. Proponents of this theory argue she may have planned to start a new life or simply take time away from stressors she was experiencing. Yet opponents of this idea point out the car crash. If she planned to disappear, why continue on a route that put her alone on a remote road late at night? And if she had intended to vanish, why leave important belongings in a car left on the roadside? Furthermore, in nearly 2 decades since, there have been no verified sightings that suggest she successfully established a new identity. Another hypothesis is that Maura intended to end her life. Some observers suggest she had been under emotional strain and that the crash may have been part of a deliberate act. However, investigators have found no conclusive evidence to support this. There was no suicide note, no personal effects that clearly imply such intent, and no body has ever been recovered to confirm this scenario. Perhaps the most troubling theory is that Maura encountered someone after the crash, a passerby or resident, and that something malicious occurred. The rural area where the car stopped was sparsely populated, and locals have reported suspicious individuals in the region around that time. Witness statements have sometimes been inconsistent, and some individuals who later claimed knowledge of the case did not provide verifiable information. Proponents of this theory argue that a determined abductor could have approached the disabled vehicle under the pretense of offering help, convinced Maura to leave with them, or forced her into another vehicle. The absence of footprints and lack of disturbance near the car are consistent with the possibility that she left with someone who had a car. But without forensic evidence or confirmed sightings, this theory remains speculative. Maura's family, particularly her father, has remained active in keeping the case in the public eye. They have worked with investigators, pursued leads, and encouraged anyone with information to come forward. Over the years, they have also expressed frustration over the lack of definitive answers and occasional conflicting reports from searches and tips. Friends describe Maura as resourceful and headstrong, someone who could surprise those around her with unexpected decisions. Those qualities have fueled debate about whether she could have disappeared by choice or whether she met someone whose intentions were darker.
Maura's family, particularly her father, has remained active in keeping the case in the public eye. They have worked with investigators, pursued leads, and encouraged anyone with information to come forward. Over the years, they have also expressed frustration over the lack of definitive answers and occasional conflicting reports from searches and tips. Friends describe Maura as resourceful and headstrong, someone who could surprise those around her with unexpected decisions. Those qualities have fueled debate about whether she could have disappeared by choice or whether she met someone whose intentions were darker. Nearly 2 decades later, the disappearance of Maura Mori remains one of the most puzzling unsolved cases in the United States. She was a young woman with a promising future, and one night she simply vanished from a roadside, leaving behind a car, personal items, and a trail of unanswered questions. Was she running from something in her life? Did she plan to leave? Or did she meet someone who took her away? Until new evidence emerges, the truth remains unknown. The story of Maura Mori is not just a case file. It is a human tragedy that reminds us how quickly a life can disappear and how the search for answers can last a lifetime. If you have any information about that night, authorities still ask that you come forward. For now, Maura's fate remains one of the great mysteries of modern times.